Hello, everyone. What we are going to study today is analysis of the financial statements, CFA level 1. We are going to study about analysis of the income statement. So I'm going to share my screen. What I'm doing is I'm going to study it, and if you like the concept, you can study along. I am going to understand how does the financial statement analysis work, what are the key ingredients of this, and I'm going to devote 2 hours today for this understanding. First of all, this is module 2 of the financial statement analysis. Income statements and analysis measures derived from them, such as sales growth, operating margins, and EPS, are critical for equity and credit analysis. This analysis helps in companies' growth, profitability, and risk assessment, and this is an important tool in valuation. This module is going to help us in how is revenue recognized. The analyst should identify differences in companies' revenue recognition methods and adjust reported revenues when possible to facilitate comparability. The revenue recognition standards have converged across US GAAP as well as IFRS. The core principles of converged standard is that revenue should be recognized to depict the transfer of promised goods to customers in an amount that reflects the consideration to which entity expects to be entitled in an exchange for the goods and services. To achieve these core principles, the standard describes the application of 5 steps in recognizing revenue. As well as there are even cost related aspects that needs to be apportioned with time. The general principles of expense recognition includes process to match the expenses to revenue, to the period in which the expenditure occurs, or to the period for the expected benefits of expenditure. In expenses recognition, choice of method, depreciation method, and inventory cost method, as well as estimates, uncollectible accounts, warranty expenses, assets useful life, and salvage value affects companies' reported income. Analysts should identify differences in companies' expense recognition method and adjust rate reported financial statement where possible to facilitate comparability. Because if you want to compare across several companies, you need to see whether if companies are following different approach and you want to bring in consistency, you can adjust the amount to that extent for your analysis. In case where the available information does not permit adjustment, an analyst shall characterize policies and estimates as much or less conservative and thus qualitatively assess how differences in policies might affect financial ratios and judgment about company's performance. To assess a company's future earning, it is helpful to separate those prior years' item of income and expense that are likely to continue in future from those which are less likely to continue. Under IFRS, a company should present additional line items, headings, and subtotals beyond those specified when such presentation is relevant to an understanding of entity's financial performance. Such items from previous years clearly are not expected to continue in future period and separately disclosed on company's income statement. Under US GAAP, unusual or infrequent occurring items which are material and presented separately within income from continuing operations. Non-operating items are reported separately from operating items as an income statement. Under both IFRS as well as US GAAP, the income statement reports separately the effect of disposal of component operations as a discontinued operation net of income taxes. So कोई अगर discontinue operation है तो IFRS और US GAAP में separately disclose किया जाता है. Basic EPS is to be calculated based on weighted average number of common shares outstanding. If there is no dilutive capital, अगर CCPS, CCDs नहीं है, तो आपका basic EPS और diluted EPS same रहेगा. If there is a capital structure which has potential dilutive securities, then your basic EPS will be more than diluted EPS. Why? Because diluted EPS will be more number of equity shares. उसका मतलब आपका डिनोमिनेटर बढ़ जाएगा. Diluted EPS is calculated using if converted method of convertible securities and the treasury stocks method for options. Fair enough. Common size analysis of income statement involves stating each line item of income statement as a percentage of sales. Common size statement facilitate comparison across time periods and across companies of different sizes. So, a common size analysis of income statement involves stating each line item of income statement as percentage of sale. तो मैंने सेल लिया, सारी आइटम्स का सेल के साथ डिवाइड करके परसेंटेज कैलकुलेट कर दिया. इसका फायदा क्या होगा? इट फैसिलिटेट्स कंपैरिजन across time periods. If you want across several time period, what is the percentage of sales of each component, or companies of different size, what is the employment expense divided by sales of different companies of different size? You can calculate it because numbers will be different, but percentage might generally be in the same or similar category. With this, the topic for reading is revenue recognition, which is the first part. There are 3 viewers. I'm not sure who are them. Okay, let's start the reading. Let's read. What is revenue recognition? We have to describe principles of revenue recognition, specific revenue recognition application, and implication of revenue recognition choices for financial analysis. A fundamental principle of accrual accounting is that revenue is recognized when it is earned. So the company's financial statement reflect revenue from sales when risk and reward of ownership is transferred. This is often when company delivers the goods and services. If the delivery is on credit, a related asset such as trade or account receivable is created. When the cash changes, it is only the recognition from debtors to cash. Similarly, in same situations, a company receives cash in advance but delivers the product later, maybe in case of real estate. In this case, you record a liability for unearned revenue or deferred revenue when the cash is initially received, and it is like the advance that you receive, but you have not yet delivered the services. Let's say subscription payment received in advance for cloud-based computer delivered over a year. Okay. Now, what is the accounting standard for this? The core principle of the accounting standard is that revenue should be recognized to depict the transfer of promised goods to customers in an amount that reflect the consideration to which entity expects to be entitled in exchange for the goods and services. The standard describes the application of 5 steps in recognizing revenue. Identify the contracts, identify separate or distinct performance obligations, determine the transaction price, allocate the transaction price to the performance obligation, recognize the revenue when or is the entity satisfies the performance obligation. सबसे पहले कॉन्ट्रैक्ट देखो, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के अंदर देखो कि कौन से पैरामीटर्स में पेमेंट आएगा, टोटल कितना पेमेंट आने वाला है और कौन से स्टेज पे आने वाला है, उसको वो स्टेजेस पे अलोकेट करो, और टू द एक्सटेंट द परफॉर्मेंस ऑब्लिगेशन इज फुलफिल्ड, यू ऑट टू रिकॉग्नाइज द रेवेन्यू. इट इज एज सिंपल एज दैट. बिल्डिंग 10 माले का है, पूरा का 10 साल में बनने वाला है, तो पूरा का पूरा रेवेन्यू फर्स्ट ईयर में रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करना है, उसको तब रिकॉग्नाइज करना है जब तक वो अंडरलाइंग परफॉर्मेंस कंडीशन मीट हो गई. इन अ सिंपल केस अनलेस एंड अंटिल देयर इज अ स्पेसिफिक रेवेन्यू रिकॉग्निशन प्रिंसिपल. A contract is an agreement and commitment with commercial substance between the contracting parties. Each party has an obligation. Each standard uses the same wording, but the threshold for probable collectibility differs. अब आपको एक असेट है, वो कुछ साल के बाद उसका पैसा मिलेगा, बट और ओवर द नंबर ऑफ टाइम, ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम यू हैव टू प्रिपेयर दैट असेट. बट अगर आपको लग रहा है कि वो पार्टी जिसके लिए आप बना रहे हो, इफ इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू पे, then it seems that the probability of collecting that money is not there. And if there is no probability of collecting, you should not recognize the revenue. Revenue should be recognized only when it is highly probable that it will not eventually be reversed. अगर वो कल उठ के पैसा रिवर्स होने वाला है कि वो पैसा देने ही नहीं वाला है, तो मैं क्यों रेवेन्यू रिकॉग्नाइज करूं? The entity which recognizes revenue when it is able to satisfy the performance obligation by transferring the control of goods or services to the customers. Factors to be considered when assessing whether the customer has obtained control of include the following: the entity has present right to payment, customer has legal title, the customer has physical possession, customer has significant risk and rewards of ownership, and the customer has accepted the goods and service. Fair enough. As an analyst, you are encounter many companies with complex revenue recognition policies reflecting the diversity of business models in practice. Example 1 is the example of real estate company. Mega Digital is an online marketplace that sells goods and services and delivers them quickly to customers. For some sales, the company acts as principal in which controls the product before the goods are transferred to the customer. In other sales, it acts as an agent. Amazon बहुत से goods वो खरीद के रख देता है and then it sells it in his own name. It's a principal, or otherwise it only plays the role of intermediary of the delivery agent. Over there, it is only an agent, and it only has to transfer the product controlled by third party. In transactions in which is an principal, जब मैं प्रिंसिपल रहता हूँ तो मेरे को रेवेन्यू तब रिकॉर्ड करना पड़ता है, the revenue is recorded as the total amount of consideration received for the transfer of product. Obviously कि अगर अमेजोन है और उसने अगर गुड खरीद लिया तो जो गुड बेचने का पूरा अमाउंट है उसको सेल रिकॉर्ड करेगा एंड द परचेज प्राइस को वो एक्सपेंस रिकॉर्ड करेगा. बट इन ट्रांजैक्शन वेर यू आर एन एजेंट, you should only record revenue only to the portion of the consideration which amount is a fee or commission, right? अगर मेरे को खाली Zomato वाला और let's say Swiggy वाला, they will not record the amount of food that they are sending through the customers as a sale. They will only recognize the fee amount which they are receiving either from us for delivery or from the third party restaurants for delivery. This can have significant impact on the common size and ratio analysis. It means that if let's say Pizza Hut or let's say Domino's, if you see their financial statement sales will have food sales as revenue, but Swiggy or Zomato financials will not have that as a revenue. In substance, they will have commission or fee for services as their revenue. Revenue is lower, but profit margin is higher for sales for digital as an agent. Yeah. So assume that it sells a particular product as a principal for USD 100 that is purchased for 70, 30 ka profit. Additionally, 10 of the selling, the margins will be cost of sales 70, gross margin 30, SG&A net profit 20. If it acts as an agent, it will receive commission of 30 and still incur 10 of other cost. Margin will be 30, 10, net margin 20. So for companies selling both as a principal and agent, such as e-commerce companies, an analyst would need to evaluate the relative portion of the principal versus sales to evaluate and forecast overall margins. This is especially important if the mix of principal and sales is expected to change. Now, if you are a franchising or licensing business, if let's say if it's a pizza company that operates both, operates and franchise pizza delivery restaurants around the globe, revenue recognition standards requires that the company disaggregate revenue from contract with customers into categories that depict how the nature, amount, timing, and uncertainty of revenue and cash flows are affected by economic factors. Company must present revenues disaggregated in consolidated financial statement to satisfy this requirement. The pizza represents the following disaggregated revenue items. Company owned stored revenue, ठीक है, अपने दुकान में से कितना रेवेन्यू आया, फ्रेंचाइजी royalties and fees, and supply chain revenue. जस्ट अ क्वेश्चन फॉर यू गाइस, दुनिया में सबसे ज्यादा स्टोर्स कौन से फूड चेन के हो गए? डोमिनोज, पिज्जा हट, मैकडोनल्ड्स? नहीं, द सबसे ज्यादा स्टोर्स इन दैट वे इज ऑफ सबवे, बिकॉज सबवे रिक्वायर्स अ वेरी स्मॉलर यूनिट to make its stores. So in every hook and corner of the world, you will be able to find a Subway store, which you will not find, but you may not find Pizza Hut or Domino's. So Subway has the highest number of such retail outlets. सब जगह पे जो रिटेल आउटलेट्स है, इज इट ओन्ड बाय अ सबवे कंपनी? नो, इट इज नॉट ओन्ड बाय द सबवे कंपनी. सम ऑफ देम मे बी, the other they have sold on franchisee, for which they will receive franchisee fee. A certain amount would be per annum basis, plus certain amount might be linked to your products which they have sold. Plus, if you go to Subway, you may not find Lays at all the places. You may somehow find some customized Subway chips or Subway cookies. So there are some things which are always associated with the products which Subway itself owns. So you will also earn revenue from such supply chain revenues, like the buns, or maybe ingredient of the buns, or ingredients of the patties, or maybe some of the vegetables will be centrally sourced and provided to all of them, and they would be charging some supply chain fee for it. So these are the revenue segment which would be in the financial statements of food and beverage companies. Now, company owned stores are of retail sales of food at stores that it owns and operates. Royalties and fees comprise of fees from third parties that are licensed to operate. Each franchisee is generally required to pay equal to 5.5% of restaurant sales. The company recognizes royalty fee as revenue, not the sale amount. Upfront fee for opening new unit is initially recognized as deferred revenue and subsequently amortized to revenue on the straight line basis over the term of which respective franchise agreement, typically 10 years. So एक franchise देने के लिए अगर मेरे को 10 साल की franchise दी, तो उसके सामने जो मेरे पास revenue आया, whether that I have capitalized as deferred operating revenue and I amortize over the period of that franchise agreement, because it is not that a revenue upfront मिला है, but it is not just for 1 year. I have certain obligation which I will also need to undertake over the period of next 10 years. Therefore, it is deferred for the period of 10 years. So there will be a different revenue recognition statement for the same thing. Similarly, if the company is software as a license, under IFRS 15, if a company provides license to use software, where company will take possession of software for installation on their own system, the company will report revenue either over the term of license or at the time the transfer of license. Company should report the revenue from the license over the term of license if under a contract or company's normal business activities, the software provider will continue to undertake activities that significantly affect the software. Example, if there is any upgrade or enhancement required, the rights exposed to the customer to positive or negative impact for those activities, and the activities does not result in transfer of goods and services. Fair enough. If these criteria are not met, then the revenue is recognized when the license is transferred to the customer. Under the terms of license, the software is sold as is and the revenue is recognized at the time of license transfer. However, also provides a support contract for update for this is recognized over the contract term. Okay. Now let's see what is there in the context of the long-term contracts. Armored Vehicle Inc. manufactures weapon system and vehicles for military customers. Example, we have in India um, the Tata armory as well as weapon system. Even Mahindra has set up a system wherein they have to, over a period of years, do military related activities or weapon manufacturing or vehicle manufacturing for militaries. These are long term contracts, not the short one, which will over the period of several years. The performance of contract is satisfied over the time. So it is not just one thing, you have a multiple years window for your operations. A performance obligation is satisfied over time if one of the following is met. The customer simultaneously receives and consumes the benefit provided by the entity's performance as entity performs. Routing contracts, आपको डेली बेसिस पे सर्टन आर्म्स एंड एम्यूनेशन अगर सप्लाई की जाएगी, the entity performance creates or enhances the asset that customer controls as the asset is created or enhanced. एग्जाम्पल, आपकी कोई एग्जिस्टिंग फैक्ट्री है या तो कोई आप रोड हो, उसको मैं रिफर्बिश करूंगा. So I am just adding a value to some of your assets. Third case is the entity performance does not create an asset with alternate use to the entity, and the entity has an enforceable right to payment for the performance completed to date. Example, construction of large unit asset that may be sold to another customer, such as weapon system. Under IFRS 15, the extent of progress towards completion may be measured by output method, appraisals or units completed, or input method. या तो आउटपुट मेथड होगा या तो इनपुट मेथड होगा. जितना आपने कंप्लीट कर दिया उसके बेसिस पे, या तो कॉस्ट इनकर्ड रिलेटिव टू द एस्टिमेट टोटल कॉस्ट. अगर मेरे पास लेट्स से एक रोड बनाने का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, एक रोड बनाने के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में मेरे को पता है कि मेरा खर्चा जाने वाला, मेरे को पता है कि रॉ मटेरियल्स कितना लगने वाला है. आई नो व्हाट इज द अमाउंट दैट आई एम गोइंग टू स्पेंड, एंड इफ आई ऑलरेडी नो द अमाउंट दैट आई हैव ऑलरेडी स्पेंड डिवाइडेड बाय total estimated cost, I will know the revenue amount that I'm going to get up from a contract. It will be a fixed. So I will multiply by cost incurred divided by estimated cost multiplied by total revenue, and that's how I will recognize my revenue. Cost of sales is recognized as incurred. Fair enough. जैसे जैसे आपने खर्चा किया, आपने उसको incur किया. The amount reported as revenue is determined by adding proportional amount of the estimated profit to the amount reported as COS. Recognizing revenue as cost are incurred provides an objective measure of progress and thereby best depicts the extent of transfer of control to the customers. So if you have a weapon system for the price of 10 million, the expected cost is 7 million and the estimated profit is 3 million. The system will take 2 years to produce. So in year 1, if you have incurred 4.2 million of cost, which is your 60% of your total cost, you will recognize the revenue of 6 million, which is 10 million multiplied by 60%, and profit of 1.8 million, both 60% of expected revenue and profits. If in year 2, जब मैं सिस्टम कंप्लीट करता हूँ, मेरा कॉस्ट ओवररन हो गया and my cost is 7.5 million instead of 7 million, then I will have to recognize the revenue of 4 million because I cannot exceed my cost anyways, and the cost of 3 million and the profit of 0.7 million and the cumulative profit of 2.5 million. So मेरा जो भी my profit amount as well as my revenue amount cannot increase because of my cost overrun. The other type of arrangement which is critical in the revenue recognition is bill and hold arrangement. In addition to the long-term contract, EVI produces custom armored vehicle that some customers may not be able to take possession of immediately because, for example, lack of storage space. Okay, you build it, but you are not able to take the possession. Provides that in such bill and hold arrangement, EVI can determine when it is satisfied its performance obligation based on when the customer obtains control of product. This is when and only when the following criteria. तो IFRS 15 के अंदर आप bill and hold arrangement में कब recognize कर सकते हो? The reason for bill and hold arrangement must be substantive. Customer has requested the arrangement. The product must be identified separately and belonging to the customer. The product currently must be ready for physical transfer to the customer. मेरे पास प्रोडक्ट रेडी होना चाहिए, उसको मेरे को सेपरेटली आइडेंटिफाई किया होना चाहिए, मेरे को पता चाहिए होना चाहिए वेयर हाउस में ये वो प्रोडक्ट है, और सामने वाला बंदा बोला है ओके इट इज रेडी बट यू कीप इट, आई डोंट हैव स्पेस राइट नाउ. द एंटिटी कैन नॉट हैव एबिलिटी टू यूज द प्रोडक्ट और टू डायरेक्ट इट टू अनदर कस्टमर. और मैं जब मेरे पास साइड में रखा हुआ, आई कैन नॉट यूज इट for myself and I cannot give it to anybody else. Let's see, I'm not sure if this example is good example. Let's see if practically what is another good example which is going on in this. Let's ask arrangements. Examples. Google. Involves a seller billing a customer for goods but holding them until a later date after a genuine reason like customer lack of space or seasonal demand. uh, Seasonal product. A toy company sells Christmas toys in October to a retailer who lacks space until after the holiday rush. The manufacturer stores the toys, recognizing the revenue, which is fair in example. A furniture supplier bills a retailer for items needed for new store opening, but the retailer requests storage until the stores are ready, which is again a good example. But is there any other real life example? Let's see. Is a furniture store selling a sofa on Black Friday discount, billing the customers immediately but holding the sofa in their warehouse until January delivery, allowing the store to book sales early while the stores gets the deal and avoids holidays crowds. Okay, but the main reason which we have seen over here is the lack of space for build and hold model. Okay. The disclosure requirement under are quite extensive to provide sufficient information to the financial statement of users on nature, amount and timing of cash flows from customers. तो आपका जो भी रेवेन्यू रिकग्निशन होगा उसमें आपको ये प्रोवाइड करना पड़ेगा कि आपका नेचर, अमाउंट एंड टाइमिंग ऑफ कैश फ्लोज क्या है. क्यों? क्योंकि एट द एंड ऑफ द डे फॉर एवरी बिजनेस कैश इज अ किंग. अगर आपको कस्टमर से आपने जो सर्विस दी है उसके लिए आप रेवेन्यू रिकग्नाइज कर रहे हो, but if you are not getting the cash you will need a working capital amount for that. It could be either be from that your capital amount is blocked for it, or company would need to take a debt for using that particular amount, and that's where you have to analyze it from the financial statement perspective as to how the balance sheet of the company will look or how the cash will be employed because of this working capital. The second point for this would be that you will also need to understand what is there in the pipeline for a company. They may have recognized a good amount of revenue this year, but there may not be a good amount of revenue next year if there are no other projects in the pipeline. So it becomes very critical that the company provides what is the nature of revenue, what is the timing of revenue, and cash flows from this. Companies are also required to balance of any contract related assets and liabilities and significant changes in those balance, remaining performance obligations and transaction prices allocated to those obligations. These disclosures are typically provided in note to the financial statements titled revenue or other. Perfect. Now let's go to the questions for this. So, analyzing income statement. There are 35 questions. Let's begin. Let's see what are the 35 questions. Under IFRS, income includes increase in economic benefits from increase in liabilities not related to owner's contribution, enhancement, increase in owner's equity related to owners. Under income includes increase in economic benefits from liabilities not related to owner's contribution, economic benefits from enhancement of assets not related to owner's contribution. Yes. Next, Fair Play reported the information shown in Exhibit 1 related to the sale of its production during 2009, which is first year of the business. Revenue is 100,000, return of goods sold is 1,000, cash collected is 800,000 COGS. Under the accrual basis of our accounting, how much net revenue should be reported on Fair Play's net revenue, not the gross revenue. So it will be your 900,000. Confirm, because it is your sales minus sales return. Apex consignment sells items over the internet for individuals on consignment basis. Apex receives items from owner list item from sale on internet and receives 25% commission for any item sold from the owner, lists them for sale and receives 25% commission, full amount from the buyer, and pays the net amount after commission to the owner. Unsold items are returned to the owner after 90 days. During 2009, Apex had the following information. Sale price of items sold on consignment were 2 million. The commissions retained was 500,000. It will record 500,000 because it is not, you don't have right and obligation to earn, you are an agent. The company previously expensed the incremental cost of obtaining a contract, all else being equal. Adopting the 2014 ISB and FSB conversion accounting standard on revenue recognition makes the company profitability initially appear. A company previously expensed the incremental cost for obtaining a contract. Previously expense the incremental cost of obtaining a contract. पहले ही मैंने अगर एक्सपेंस कर दिया है, दूसरा सब चीज अगर सेम रहेगा और मैंने अगर IFRS कन्वर्जन कर दिया है, makes the company's profitability initially appear unchanged. I think so it should be unchanged. No, the answer is wrong. Under the converged accounting standards, the incremental cost of obtaining a contract and certain costs incurred to fulfill the must be capitalized. Okay, if there is an initial cost for obtaining contract and certain cost for to fulfill a contract must be capitalized. If the company expends this incremental cost in the years prior to the all else being equal, its profitability will appear higher under the convergence. Because मैंने पहले P&L डेबिट किया था, which I should have done asset डेबिट. मेरे को asset बढ़ाना चाहिए था, but मैंने P&L बढ़ाया, तो फिर मेरा P&L की वजह से मेरी पहले के साल की profitability कम थी, और restatement में I would have done things as if I am following IFRS from the earlier date. Because of this, I will now increase my asset and credit my revenue for that, and because of that credit, my income is going to increase and therefore my profitability. Perfect. Under IFRS, a loss from the destruction of property in fire would most likely be classified as a loss from the destruction of property in a fire. It is still a continuing operation unless and until it is specifically told, but it is still an item of continuing operations. Yeah. Discontinued operations only relates to those where your operation has stopped. An item a company chooses to change an accounting policy. This change requires that, if practical, the company restate its financial statement for accounting policy change कर रहा हूँ. For all accounting policies, it should be retrospective. This changes requires that, if practical, the company restate its financial position. You have to restate your financial position for current and I think prior periods shown in the report. B. I think C. Yeah, C is correct. If the company changes an accounting policy, then the financial statement for all fiscal years shown in companies, if practical, as if newly adopted, has been used throughout the entire period. This retrospective application of the change makes the financial results of any prior years included in the report comparable. In 2009, Flamingo Products had net income of 1 million. In January, there were 1 million shares outstanding. On July 2009, the company had issued 100,000 new shares for USD 20 per share. The company paid 200,000 as dividend in common shareholders. What Flamingo basic EPS for 2009? So, at a net income of this, there were 1 million shares outstanding. So, if we do it in calculator, this divided will be 1 EPS, but there are new shares which are issued for 20 per share. What rate you have issued is not that relevant. It is for 6 months effectively that your capital, it means that you have to divide it by uh, 1, okay, 05000. The company paid in dividend to the common shareholders. Basic EPS per share. Okay, we want basic EPS per share. It will be 0.0000 0.000 divided by 1005000. 0.91. C is correct. The weighted average number of outstanding is 105. Perfect. Basic EPS would be, ठीक है, मेरा कैलकुलेशन क्यों कर रहा था, वही अप्रोच था, 1000000 divided by 150,000. 050,000. Okay, ठीक है, perfect. It should be 0.95. Next answer. A company with no debt or convertible securities issued publicly traded common stocks 3 times during current fiscal year. Publicly traded common stocks 3 times under both IFRS and US GAAP. The company basic equals to it diluted EPS. Perfect, because there is no convertible or debt securities. For a fiscal year, the company reports its net income of USD 200 million and a weighted average of 50 million common shares. There are 2 million convertible preferences outstanding that paid an annual dividend of USD 5. Each preference share is convertible into 2 shares of common stock. The diluted EPS will be closest to, diluted EPS के लिए सबसे पहले what we will do is that 200 million डिवाइडेड बाय प्लस समथिंग होगा, और नीचे डिनोमिनेटर में भी समथिंग होगा. नीचे डिनोमिनेटर में 50 मिलियन शेयर्स होगा, प्लस ईच इज कन्वर्टेबल इनटू, एक के बदले आपको 2 शेयर होगा. तो आपका अगर इक्विटी प्रेफरेंस शेयर अगर मैंने इक्विटी में कन्वर्ट कर दिया तो कितने इक्विटी शेयर्स होते हैं, तो वो 4 मिलियन इक्विटी शेयर्स होता है. तो वो 54 हो जाता है डिनोमिनेटर. 50 + 4 = 54. और आपका न्यूमरेटर होता है कि अगर मेरे पास सारे इक्विटी शेयर्स होते और प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड पे करना ही नहीं होता, तो देन आई वुड हैव सेव्ड ऑन द प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड, राइट? सो माय नेट इनकम 200 million would have been increased by your common shares outstanding divided by, I would make an adjustments to the numerator as well as denominator also. So 2 million into 5, which is 10 million. So मेरा 210 million का प्रॉफिट ऊपर और डिवाइडेड बाय 54 इज इक्वल्स टू 4.11. The diluted EPS has to be my 200 million plus the amount that I save, 2 million into 5 USD, which is 10 million. So मेरा 210 होना चाहिए मेरा न्यूमरेटर, और डिनोमिनेटर होना चाहिए 54. Perfect. 210 divided by 54 is equals to 4.11, and the amount which is closest to that is 3.7. और दूसरा ऑप्शन अगर 200 में करूँ डिवाइडेड बाय सीधा 54 करूँ, So it is 3.92. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. Diluted EPS is equals to 2 divided by, perfect, 54 million हो जाता है ये, और ऊपर आपको 200 कर रहे हैं. The diluted assumes that the preference is not paid and that the shares are converted. But I think because of that, they should have increased this 200 also amount also to the preference dividend. I'm not sure why they have not added this. But anyways, the answer is correct. For the fiscal year ended, CBC reported net income of 12 million and a weighted average of 2 million. The company paid 800,000 in preference and had 100,000 options outstanding with the average exercise price of 20. Market price over the year average 25 per share. CWC is diluted closest to. Let's see the working directly. Yeah. So if we see the working diluted EPS is net income minus preference dividend. We have to divide this by weighted average number of shares plus new shares that would have been issued at option exercise less shares that could have been purchased with cash received upon exercise multiplied by proportion of the year during which the financial instruments were outstanding. The underlying assumption is that the outstanding options are exercised, and then the proceeds for issuance of the new shares are used to repurchase the shares already outstanding. Proceeds from options received is 100,000 multiplied by USD 20. Shares repurchased is equals to USD 2 million. जो पैसा मेरे पास आया उसको मैंने मार्केट प्राइस से शेयर परचेज कर दिया इज इक्वल्स टू 8,000. द नेट इंक्रीज इन शेयर्स आउटस्टैंडिंग इज 10. मेरे पास जो एग्जिस्टिंग शेयर्स थे माइनस 80,000 equals to 20,000. Therefore, the diluted EPS for CWC is my actual profit minus the amount of 800,000 divided by 20,000. Sorry, एक बार वापस जाते हैं on this question. Okay, it is the next question. Let's see the question. For the fiscal year, CWC reported net income of USD 12 million. Numerator मेरा 12 million है. And weighted average number was 2 million. The company paid 800,000 in preference dividend and had, इतना मेरा preference shares तो जाने ही वाला है तो ये पैसा ऊपर से माइनस हो जाएगा, and had 1,000 options outstanding with an average exercise price. तो मैं assume करूंगा कि exercise price पे वो लोग दे देंगे. It means I will receive around 2 million in cash. 2 million in cash. And this 2 million, if I have to buy back my shares applying this amount of 25, that is going to give me 2 million divided by 25, 80,000. 80,000 शेयर में बायबैक कर सकता हूँ. उसका मतलब मेरा बेस बढ़ा, बेस हुआ 2 million प्लस 100,000 less 80,000 is my base, and my numerator is preference is the net income minus my preference dividend. Perfect. Now, financial data shown in Exhibit 1. Company's shares outstanding as on 1st January are 22.02. Okay, shares issued as stock dividend. Common shares issued as stock dividend is 380,000. Warrants outstanding as on 1st January is equals to 500,000. नेट इनकम मेरा न्यूमरेटर वाली चीज़ें है. न्यूमरेटर वाली चीज़ों में सबसे पहले 3.35 मिलियन आ जाएगा नेट इनकम. प्रीफर्ड स्टॉक्स डिविडेंड पेड इज 4.043 मिलियन. और कॉमन स्टॉक डिविडेंड पेड जो मेरे को डिविडेंड पे करना पड़ा वो ये. विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग स्टेटमेंट इज एलबीज ईपीएस मोस्ट एक्यूरेट. एलबीज बेसिक ईपीएस, सबसे पहले बेसिक ईपीएस कैलकुलेट करता है कितना है बेसिक अर्निंग पर शेयर. नेट इनकम 335 divided by, no, it is net income still 3350 3350 minus 430,000 is equals to ये अर्निंग पर शेयर देखना है डिवाइडेड बाय एट द एंड ऑफ द ईयर मेरे पास कितने स्टॉक रह रहे हैं वो मेरे को देखना है. 80,000 4 लाख 2400000. My basic EPS is 1.21. Diluted EPS is equal to or less than basic EPS. The weighted average number of shares outstanding is. Which statement about the calculation of LB's EPS is most accurate? It's basic EPS तो wrong है. Second point is that diluted EPS is equal to या तो equal to or less than basic EPS. वो तो हमेशा सही होता है because diluted EPS will not be more than this. The weighted average number, let's go with the second. Yeah. LB has warrant in its capital structure. If the exercise price is less than, उसके पास शेयर वारंट है, अगर एक्सरसाइज प्राइस है is less than weighted average market price during the year, अगर आपकी जो एक्सरसाइज प्राइस है वो अगर weighted average market price, the effect of this conversion is to increase the weighted average number of common shares outstanding, causing diluted EPS to be lower than basic EPS. नहीं समझा, वापस पढ़ते हैं. कंपनी का वेटेड एवरेज कहाँ पे दिया है, बट वो वेटेड एवरेज प्राइस तो दिया ही नहीं है. नेट इनकम वारंट्स आउटस्टैंडिंग बी को बी इज करेक्ट, फेयर इनफ. एल बी हैज वारंट, मेरे पास शेयर वारंट है कैपिटल स्ट्रक्चर में. अगर एक्सरसाइज प्राइस इज लेस देन वेटेड एवरेज मार्केट प्राइस ड्यूरिंग द ईयर, मेरी जो पैसा जो देने वाला है वो उससे कम है. The effect of the conversion is to increase the weighted average number of common shares outstanding, causing diluted EPS to be lower than basic EPS. Perfect. कि अगर मैं उसको कन्वर्ट करता तो मेरा anyways diluted EPS will be lower than basic EPS. If exercise price is equal to weighted average market price, the number of shares issued equals the number of shares repurchased. Therefore, weighted average number of shares is not effect. If exercise price is greater than weighted average market price, let's say कंपनी का पूरे साल में शेयर रेट चल रहा था 100 to 120, ओके, बट मैंने अगर उसको और एक्सरसाइज प्राइस चल रहा है 150, तो इन दैट वे मैं कंपनी को एक्सरसाइज प्राइस पे एक्सरसाइज करवा के मैं एडिशनल कैपिटल इन्फ्यूज करूंगा और वही रेट से मैं ज़्यादा शेयर्स माइनस करूंगा. तो मेरे पास जितने नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स इश्यू हुए ना उससे ज़्यादा मेरे शेयर्स रीपरचेज हो जाएंगे. तो मेरा डिनोमिनेटर बेस इन दैट केस विल रिड्यूस. As such, they are not included in calculation of basic EPS. LB's basic EPS is 1.22, which is your 3.35 million minus 4.3 divided by 240, which is right, because हम लोग ने क्या किया 240 के लिए टोटल डिनोमिनेटर हम लोग ने इंक्लूड किया था. which is 1 to 1. Stocks dividend are treated as having been issued retrospectively to the beginning of the year. Stock dividend are treated as being issued retrospectively to the beginning of the period. Perfect. Call service had 100,000 average shares outstanding during all of 2009. CSI also had 10,000 options outstanding with exercise price of 10 USD. The average stock price of CSI during 2009 was 15. Average stock price was more than your exercise price. For the purpose of calculating diluted, how many shares would be used इन द डिनोमिनेटर. ईपीएस के लिए मैं डिनोमिनेटर में कितने शेयर्स करूंगा, उसका मतलब मैं 1 मिलियन ऑप्शन, सबसे पहले ऑप्शन अगर एक्सरसाइज करवा देता हूं तो उससे कितना पैसा मिलता है, 10,000 मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 10, इतना पैसा मिला. ओके, इतने पैसे से मैं कितना शेयर्स खरीद सकता हूं, डिवाइडेड बाई 15. पैसा मिला और उससे शेयर खरीदो वही रेट पे, बट वो रेट कौन सा होगा, आपका वेटेड एवरेज रेट होगा. तो 6666 इतने शेयर्स मैं माइनस करूंगा. तो मैं -666 करता हूं प्लस 1 मिलियन प्लस 10,000 कितना हो जाएगा, 1003333 1003333. कंफर्म आंसर. नेक्स्ट, when calculating diluted EPS, which of the following securities in the capital structure increases the weighted average number of capital shareholding without affecting the net income available to the common shareholders? Net income तभी बढ़ेगा जब उसके सामने कोई बैलेंस शीट एट्रीब्यूट है and that balance sheet attribute is not yielding me a positive or a negative impact on my income statement. If there is a convertible debt, तो मेरा इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस बचना कम हो जाएगा. स्टॉक ऑप्शंस है तो वो स्टॉक ऑप्शंस में भी डिफरेंस बिटवीन एक्सरसाइज प्राइस एज वेल एज एक्सरसाइज प्राइस माइनस द स्ट्राइक प्राइस, वो अमाउंट ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ ईयर डिटरमाइन होता है. बट कन्वर्टिबल डिविडेंड would be a better answer. Okay, sorry, stock option is a better answer. When a company has stock options outstanding, diluted EPS is calculated as if the financial instrument had been exercised and the company had used the proceeds to repurchase as many number of shares possible at the price. As a result, the conversion of stock options increases the number of common share outstanding but has no impact in the income statement to the common shareholders. Debt increases the net income available to the common shareholders. The conversion of convertible debt increases the net income available to by the amount of preferred dividend paid. Perfect. Which of the statement is most accurate? A common size income statement restate each line item of the income statement as a percentage of net income, which is fair. Restates each line item of the as a percentage, allows the analyst to conduct cross-sectional analysis by removing the effect of company size, standardizes each company line items of the income statement but fails to help an analyst identify differences in company strategies. The common size income statement allows to, this is true, yeah. It facilitates a comparison across time period, time series analysis, and across companies by stating each line item of the income statement as a percentage of revenue. The relative performance of different companies can be more easily assessed because scaling the numbers removes the effect of size. The common size income statement states each line item as a percentage of revenue. The standardization of each line item makes a common size income statement useful for identifying difference in company strategies. The 2-for-1 stock split, which of this following is more likely will more likely change relative to the pre-split value? Agar 2-for-1 stock, after a 2-for-1 stock split, EPS आपको एक के बदले अब 2 शेयर मिल रहा है, उसका मतलब आपका ईपीएस कम तो हो ही जाएगा एनीवेज। प्राइस टू अर्निंग रेशियो। तीसरा, डिविडेंड पे आउट रेशियो, विच will most likely change relative to its pre-split value। मतलब लेट्स से पहले 100 शेयर्स थे, अब आफ्टर 2-for-1 स्टॉक स्प्लिट, 2-for-1 स्टॉक स्प्लिट, ओके इट्स अ स्टॉक स्प्लिट, तो आपके एक शेयर के बदले आपकी 2 शेयर मिल गई है। ओके, द नंबर ऑफ शेयर कैपिटल रिमेन सेम, सो प्राइस टू अर्निंग रेशियो, ओके, dividend payout ratio, which will more likely to change relative to its more likely to change pre-split value। मतलब लेट्स से अगर पहले कंपनी 10,000 डिविडेंड इश्यू 10,000 उसका अर्निंग्स था, ओके, और लेट्स से वो 10,000 का 10,000 डिविडेंड ही दे रहा था एंड उसका शेयर कैपिटल भी 10,000 था, बट आफ्टर दिस नाउ इट इज 20,000, तो नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स आर नाउ 20,000। So 10,000 divided by, earlier it used to be 10,000 is 1. Now it will be 20,000, which is 0.5. So my earning per share is reducing, but my, in terms of overall value, it will still be same because 2 into 0.5 is equals to 1, which is my earlier value. Price to earnings ratio. Price to earning ratio. I think price to earnings ratio will split. A 2-for-1 stock split will double accordingly, reducing the EPS to half of the pre-value. Price to will remain unchanged because the price also reduces by half and exactly cancels out the effect of reduced EPS. The dividend payout ratio remains unchanged because the same portion of the revenue is still used. Okay, that way. The following information is available on the company for current year. Net income है, ठीक है, कन्वर्टेबल सिक्योरिटीज आउटस्टैंडिंग देके रखी है, प्रीफर्ड स्टॉक आउटस्टैंडिंग है, डिविडेंड कितना था वो भी देके रखा है, और ईच इज कन्वर्टेबल इनटू 5, कन्वर्टेबल बॉन्ड्स देके रखा है। कंपनी डाइल्यूटेड ईपीएस इज क्लोजेस्ट टू, न्यूमरेटर पे इंपैक्ट देखो और डिनोमिनेटर पे इंपैक्ट देखो। न्यूमरेटर पे नेट इनकम इज 10 मिलियन, 10 मिलियन पे मेरा, और नीचे सबसे पहले 100,000 डाल दिया, फिर मैंने डिनोमिनेटर में अगर मेरे को प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स इक्विटी में कन्वर्ट हो जाते हैं तो कितने होते हैं, ईच इज कन्वर्टेड इनटू 5, सो 5 into 2,000 is equals to 10,000, तो 1 plus 0.1 plus फेस वैल्यू पर बॉन्ड इज 80,000, 8% कूपन दे रहा है, ईच बॉन्ड इज कन्वर्टेबल इनटू 25 शेयर्स ऑफ कॉमन स्टॉक, एक बॉन्ड 25,000 में कन्वर्ट हो जाएंगे। नंबर ऑफ बॉन्ड किधर देके रखा है, 10,000 पर बॉन्ड, एक बॉन्ड की वैल्यू है 10,000, सॉरी 100 इज द फेस वैल्यू पर बॉन्ड। नंबर ऑफ बॉन्ड्स देख लेते हैं कितने हो गए, तो 80,000 डिवाइडेड बाय ईच बॉन्ड इज कन्वर्टेबल इनटू 25 डिवाइडेड बाय 100, नंबर ऑफ बॉन्ड्स है 800, मेरे पास जो 800 बॉन्ड है उसको मेरे को 25 शेयर में कन्वर्ट करना पड़ेगा, इज इक्वल्स टू 20,000 हो जाएगा, तो प्लस 0.1 प्लस 0.20, सो मतलब मेरा डिनोमिनेटर इज 1.30, और न्यूमरेटर की बात करें सो इट विल बी 10 प्लस मेरा डिविडेंड, जो मेरा जो नेट इनकम है उसको मैं इंक्रीज करूंगा बाय अमाउंट ऑफ 80,000 मल्टीप्लाइड बाय 8 डिवाइडेड बाय 100, 8%, 6,400, which is 0.064, 0.0064 is my savings on account of interest. And what do you really mean by net income? Is it एंड द कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स रेट, अर्निंग्स पर शेयर के लिए आपको कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स रेट भी माइनस करना पड़ेगा. सो my it has to be 10 million plus 0.0064 multiplied by 60%, मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 60%. ये अमाउंट आ गया. ये अमाउंट को आपको डिवाइड करना पड़ेगा 1.30 से. इट इज basic EPS, diluted EPS, bond converted, diluted EPS, preferred converted. Net income is 1 million, 1 million, 1 million. Preferred capital, preferred dividend is 20,000. दोनों में मेरे को नेगेटिव 20,000 करना पड़ेगा. After tax cost of interest is equals to 1 minus न्यूमरेटर मेरा हो जाता. इतना बेनिफिट मेरे को टैक्स पे मिल रहा है, बट वो टैक्स पे अब मिलेगा नहीं. सो 980,000. एवरेज कॉमन शेयर होल्डिंग इज 100,000. preferred converted, preferred bond converted, denominator is 100,000. 9.80 is the basic EPS. Dilute preferred dividend were included after preferred conversion. Preferred dividends were included after preferred conversions. Okay. So second point, इसमें preferred dividend मैंने minus कर दिया. आफ्टर टैक्स कॉस्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट भी मैंने 3840 माइनस कर दिया, प्लस कर दिया. देन न्यूमरेटर मेरा हो गया ये अमाउंट, डिनोमिनेटर हो गया कॉमन स्टॉक्स. प्रीफर्ड कन्वर्टेड 10,000 और बोथ कन्वर्टेड जब हो गया तब वो 130 हो गया. इसमें खाली डाइल्यूटेड हो गया तो 1.10. व्हाट वाज द क्वेश्चन? सॉरी. Diluted EPS should be considered based on both converted, which is 7.72. Okay. The following data is available for two companies that operate in same industry. कंपनी X है और कंपनी Y है. एक X है और एक Y है. दोनों का सेल्स दे के रखा है, COGS दे के रखा है, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कॉस्ट दे के रखा है, इंटरेस्ट खर्चा, R&D. Which of the following statements is most appropriate? Better margin performance will be reported by better margins performance. Company X at the gross margin level and company X at the operating margin level. पहले ग्रॉस मार्जिन लेवल देख लेते हैं कि दोनों के क्या क्या है. कंपनी Y at both the gross margins and operating margin level. Operating margin and दूसरा ग्रॉस मार्जिन. $14.5 minus 7.7 is equals to 6.8. 6.8 divided by 14.5 is equals to 46% है. और ऑपरेटिंग मार्जिन है मेरा 14.5 लेस 7.7 लेस 2.2. 14.5 less 7.7 less 2.2 less 1.7. 3.6 divided by 14.5. 4.5 53%, और सेकंड केस के अंदर 11.2 माइनस 5.7, 5.5, 5.5 डिवाइडेड बाई 11.2 इज इक्वल्स टू 49%। तो कंपनी एक्स का ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट इसमें ज़्यादा है, और 11.2 माइनस 5.7 लेस 1.9 less 1.5 is equals to 2.1 divided by 11.2 is equals to 18.75. तो कंपनी X at gross margin level, company Y at gross margin level, and company X at operating margin level. Company Y in better margin performance, company X confirm. Yeah, because sales 100%. Common size statement refers to a convenient way to compare companies of different magnitude. Reports better, higher gross profit margins. Company Y better, higher operating margins performance. Sales minus COGS of company X is higher than company Y. Then administrative cost is 17, and R&D operating margins, so Y's OMs is higher. The following relates to companies' common equity over the course of years. Outstanding at the end of the year is 2 million. Stocks options outstanding at the start of the year. Exercise price is 5. Shares issued on 1st April is 300,000. शेयर्स रीपर्चेस्ड, कंपनी के मार्केट प्राइस कम हो गई होगी, तो इसलिए कंपनी ने सोचा कि कैश से अपने शेयर्स रीपर्चेस कर देते हैं 1 जुलाई को 100,000 देके. एंड इफ द कंपनीज इफ द नेट इनकम फॉर द कंपनी फॉर द ईयर इज 5 million, the diluted EPS is closest to. Okay, so let's calculate the amount. नेट इनकम ऊपर का 5 million, शेयर्स नीचे का सबसे पहले 2 million प्लस stock option outstanding at the end of the year, at the start and the end of the year, दोनों में 100,000 है, मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 5 करेंगे, सो 500,000 का मैं शेयर इशू करूंगा. ठीक है. एवरेज मार्केट प्राइस ऑफ द कॉमन स्टॉक फॉर द ईयर इज 20 पर शेयर. अब यही पैसा मैं बोलूंगा कि भाई इतना पैसा मेरे पास आया और मैंने अपने खुद के शेयर्स खरीद लिए 25,000 रुपए में. ठीक है, 25,000. तो 2 प्लस 0.1 minus 0.025. Okay, plus there are certain shares which I have issued during the year which is around 300,000. so 3 ऐड करो plus 0.3 ऐड करो और minus 0.1, so it will be 2 plus 0.1 minus 0.025 plus 0.3 minus 0.1 is equals to 2.275. So let's do 5 divided by 2.275, which should be equal to 2.19. So 2.20 is the closest. This does not prorate the new shares issued or repurchased for the length of the time outstanding. Okay, sorry. So we also have to prorate this to the length of the time they have been outstanding. Or ignores the buyback. We have considered the buyback. If answer is 2.22, because shares issued at the exercise price, perfect, minus share repurchased with the cash advance, perfect, incremental shares issued is perfect, 75,000 वही कैलकुलेट किया है. weighted average shares outstanding 2 million into पूरे साल के लिए plus incremental shares issued assuming options were exercised 75,000 पूरे साल के लिए, plus shares issued is 300k into 9 divided by 12 share repurchase into 6 months के लिए minus 50,000 because 100,000 into 6 divided by 12, so it is 2.22 per share. The following table shows changes to the number of common share outstanding for a company during 2012. 1 जनवरी इतने शेयर्स आउटस्टैंडिंग थे, देन 1 जून में 60,000 शेयर्स वर इश्यूड, 1 अगस्त में 2-for-1 स्टॉक स्प्लिट हो गया, 31st December 480,000 shares outstanding. To calculate earnings per share for 2012, the company's weighted average number of shares outstanding, company's weighted number of shares outstanding is closest to 180,000, 60,000 into 6 divided by 12, उसका मतलब ये हो गया 300,000. अगस्त में स्टॉक स्प्लिट हुआ, वन एटी थाउजेंड प्लस 60,000, 240,000 इंटू 2, इसलिए वजह से 480 आ जा रहा है. ओके, सो 180,000 इंटू कितने मंथ्स के लिए था? 180,000 आपका था 6 मंथ्स के लिए, सॉरी 180,000 आपका रहा 7 मंथ्स के लिए. तो 105,000, 60,000 रहा आपके 1 मंथ के लिए, विच इज योर 5,000, प्लस 480,000 रहा आपका अगस्त, सितंबर, अक्टूबर, नवंबर, दिसंबर 5 मंथ के लिए, विच इज योर 200,000, सो 310,000. Make the stock split retrospectively to the beginning of the year. Okay, retrospectively लेना है आपको beginning of the year से. Stock split, I will need to read this. Stock split आपको retrospectively लेना है from beginning of the year. Stock split you have to take retrospectively from the beginning of the year. So you have to now consider 1 Jan to 1 June, 75,000, 1 June to December 140,000. Before considering the stock split, अब वो जो स्टॉक आएगा उसको मल्टीप्लाइड बाई 2 करना है, मतलब आपको गिना जाएगा दैट इन इफेक्ट यू वर होल्डिंग 215,000 शेयर्स. The following information is available about the company from the current year. Net income of 32 million. Information is available about a company for the current year. Net income is 32 million. Weighted average number of common shares outstanding of 4.5 million. 32 divided by weighted average number of common stock is 4.5. 15 million of 12% convertible bond convertible into 50,000 shares plus 0.05. Okay. 250 per share. Average price is 80 during the year. Tax rate is 30%. Company's diluted EPS is closest to. टैक्स रेट इंटरेस्ट सेविंग कितना हो जाता अगर मैंने डेट कन्वर्शन कर दिया तो, और कितने नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स मेरे को माइनस करने पड़ते. 15 मिलियन का कन्वर्टेबल बॉन्ड है, 15 मिलियन का कन्वर्टेबल बॉन्ड है इंटू 12%, तो मेरा 1.8 मिलियन का इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट है. बट अगर मेरा टैक्स सेविंग हो जाता तो मेरा इफेक्टिवली जो मेरा पैसा बच रहा है, अगर मेरे को ये खर्चा फोरगो करना पड़ता तो उसका 70% है. तो मेरा 1.26 मेरा न्यूमरेटर बच रहा है बाय वर्च्यू ऑफ द कन्वर्जन, एंड दी होल्डिंग वाज 32 प्लस 1.26, और मेरा डिनोमिनेटर पे होता वेन्स इज इक्वल्स टू 4.5 प्लस 50,000 शेयर मैं बोलता हूँ कन्वर्ट हो जाएंगे. 0.05 मेरे को कन्वर्ट करने हैं, उसको अज्यूमिंग करना है कि उसको कन्वर्ट हुआ है, इंटू 0.05 प्लस मेरे शेयर्स बढ़ेंगे बिकॉज मेरे को कन्वर्जन करना. ये 200,000 ऑप्शंस है, 50 के प्राइस पे मिल रहा है, तो इतना पैसा आया. तो प्लस मैं 2 तो कर रहा हूँ और उसके बाद मैं माइनस करूँगा. क्या ये जो मेरे पास पैसा आया, मेरे पास जो अभी पैसा आया विच इज़ योर 200,000, और हर शेयर होल्डर ने मेरे को $50 दिया, तो ये जो मेरे पास पैसा आया उसको मैं 80 पर डॉलर माइनस करूँगा, सो इट इज़ 1.25. इतना पैसा मैं, इतने पैसे से मैंने वापस शेयर्स खरीद लिए. So my numerator is 32 plus 1.26 divided by 4.5 plus 0.05 plus 2 minus 1.25, 5.3. और मेरा न्यूमरेटर है 32 plus 1.26 is equals to 33.26 divided by 5.3. It has to be around 6.2754. 6 point सबसे क्लोजेस्ट यही है. Only the options in diluted EPS but failed to allow the hypothetical buyback. We have considered 5.3 calculation was 4.5 plus 0.05 plus 2 minus 1.25, 5.3. Average number of shares at exercise of options 200,000, 4.5 plus 2 इंक्लूड कर दिया था. 4.7 diluted EPS with options. बेसिक EPS, डाइल्यूटेड EPS. डाइल्यूटेड EPS पे हम लोग ने कंसिडर किया वेयर देर इज नो प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड. प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड तो ऐसे भी नहीं है. Weighted average number of shares outstanding is 450,000 plus 75,000. That's what exactly what we have considered. Numerator net income, because it is greater than the convertible bonds, are anti-dilutive and must be excluded from the diluted EPS calculated. Only options. Sorry, it's not clear. The answer to this they are saying is 6.99. And how is this 6.99 calculated? Numerator, convertible bond, and if it is a convertible bond then you also have to give the impact of the tax rates. 32 न्यूमरेटर पे इम्पैक्ट दिया, प्लस 126 दे के रखा, परफेक्ट, दिस इज न्यूमरेटर इज राइट. वेन्स प्लस कन्वर्टिबल बॉन्ड्स इफ कन्वर्टेड प्लस 50,000 कंसिडर कर दिया, राइट. Yes. Basic EPS is 7.31, but from this 7.61, I'm not sure how is this coming. Because diluted EPS is greater than basic EPS, the convertible bonds are anti-dilutive. Because the convertible bonds are anti-dilutive and must be excluded from diluted EPS calculation. Anti-dilutive. Because they are anti-dilutive, they must be excluded from calculate diluted EPS using one of the options with the only options. We have done this if the conversion does not takes place. So what I have to now study is at what time do we consider numerator and denominator for EPS calculation. I am not very sure as to why in this example they have not considered options conversion. Sorry, bonds conversion. Because it is anti-dilutive, it is not your diluted EPS will always be equal to or your less than basic EPS. But in this case, it is coming more than this. And at what time can your dilutive EPS come more than this? Is your earning per share increasing substantially? उसका मतलब you are getting benefit because of the conversion. And when you are getting the benefit because of conversion, I'm not sure why do you only consider this. This is something I will need to read it again. Bond and options to be considered different. The impact of band and option needs to be got separately. You have to test for dilution for each security. Bond and options to be considered different. I think I will need to read this again. I am CA, yeah. I did my exams 2016. And while I read things or maybe financial statement analysis only for the perspective of taxation because I work in the taxation field. So it's after exactly around 10 years that I am reading EPS things actually. Okay, I think I did a mistake over here because if I go to modules again, revenue recognize is one part. I just completed revenue recognize part and I'm giving the complete. After this, there was expense recognition module, which I had to complete before I go again on the EPS side. So I think I should have seen this before and then directly jumped into the practical exam set. My exams are in May 2026. So I'm preparing for that exams. Okay, I can do one thing.